Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the BB-Scho. As always, I'm your host, Beebs. I'm joined by my co-host, Chen. We're here to react to a rather lackluster Week 18. And I say that because there were just games that don't matter. You know, there's a Week 18 always comes around, and you just kind of go through the motions a little bit because it just feels like everything's almost set in stone. There's usually 3 or 4 games that matter at all, right? And then the rest, like Panthers Saints we were talking about, who cares, right? And
Yeah,
teams aren't playing their starters, and there's a lot that doesn't matter. But I'll throw it to you for Thursday night. I mean, second appearance of Jared Stidham. I mean, what are your thoughts here? Chiefs kind of handle the Raiders, but do you have any deep analysis here? 31-13. I mean, floor is yours.
short answer is no. Um, I understand Jarrett Stidham he had a decent, I don't want to say like NFL debut, but like full game as a starter from what I've seen recently. In somewhat of a competitive setting. I mean, the 49ers are still playing hard. He did all right this past week. It was like they're gonna add somebody. Now I don't think he's like the worst option in the world. I mean, going into this season, I thought the Seahawks had the worst quarterback situation, and I was way off.
That's very true.
So I think, and that'll probably open up a bigger point that I know we're going to talk about this offseason, the quarterback carousel and whatnot. But I almost think Geno Smith is going to give some teams, it's going to help. They're going to sign a journeyman that helps them out and does what they need to do. But I could also see it being a negative. Like this might give Josh McDaniel, oh, we need to give Jarrett Stidham a full year. I don't think you do. I really think you
Well,
can
no, Jared
go get
Stidham
somebody
is
else.
Jared Stidham is not a 10-year backup who's been around
He's like
for
two
a
year, yeah.
yeah. I mean, he's still a young quarterback, so no, I don't think he classifies in that Geno Smith category. But that is an interesting thought that I might piggyback a little bit because we talk about Geno Smith and the way he potentially could change the way teams look at quarterback. I think there's another candidate that might change the way teams draft quarterbacks a lot, depending on how much success he has here in the next coming weeks, and that's Brock Purdy. Because if this guy
Yeah.
goes and wins a Super Bowl, holy cow, right? That might change literally everything in the way we look at structuring a
The
roster.
quarterbacks do. Yeah.
In the same way
I'm
that
all with you.
running backs are now replaceable, we might get to that point if teams are, we have such a plethora of wide receivers in the league. I'm not saying quarterbacks will be as replaceable as running backs, but there will be an argument to be made where it's been proven you can win a Super Bowl in today's NFL with really good offense of weapons and a really good defense and a mediocre quarterback.
I think if anything, and we can move on after because I know we're not even really talking about the game anymore. It's about quarterbacks. But for the combine, doesn't it? I know it's always fun to watch to see the quarterbacks with their 40 times and the throws that, oh, I don't know, they do in practice every day. But I'm more of like, start to really look at these guys, their IQ. Do some like when they're at the combine while everyone else is
Oh
working out,
yeah, I
bring them
mean,
in, just put them in front of a chalkboard and just go X's and O's. I think that is like you see with Tom Brady, but even like we mentioned with Brock Purdy and probably, I mean, Peyton Manning, there's
I
so many.
think I think that Zach Wilson is going to change the way the combine works for the quarterbacks and those pre-draft workouts, right, where they're throwing
I would
balls in
hope so.
shorts and they look like a superstar. And the
Yeah.
number one candidate for that is going to be Will Levis. I actually like him. I think he has the arm talent, but he's definitely not, somebody that you can draft ahead of C.J. Stroud or Bryce Young. And if that happens, it's going to be another example of this Zach Wilson pre pro day hype, I guess is the word I'm looking for, where this guy shows up in shorts and looks like Superman. And you put let's like actually watch him play football. And he's, Zach Wilson was great in college, but who's he playing against, right? And we forget about these certain metrics because of this social media era of pro day QBs. So,
Right.
look, when it comes and to circle back to the Raiders a little bit, I do want to ask you, like, what are they doing next year? Like, who do you think are we rolling with Stidham? Right? Like, where are they at in a roster that this
They
decision
should
made any
take,
sense?
they should really take a quarterback. I don't
There's
see how you
not that
can't.
many. unless they're trading, there's not that many up out there, man.
You say that. You say that. I'm
And
already
I don't think
in
they've
my
got the
head. I think
assets.
there's going to be four that are going to go top 10 because that happens every year. We saw this with the Trey Lance, Mac Jones, Justin Fields. It's those guys probably go in the back. No, it's a quarterback happy league, and I understand this year probably opened up some eyes for people. But there's teams that are desperate. There's still desperation.
I don't
There's
think
still the
that's
Colts are going to take somebody. The Texans are going to take somebody.
yeah,
The
because
Raiders are
those
probably
no,
going to get like
but
Levis or Max Duggan. That's
okay,
what I'm
so
thinking.
that's fair because that's what I was about to say is the Colts and the Texans are like two teams that are absolutely that is their number one need, right?
Yeah.
The Raiders 2 weeks ago, that was not their number one need. And here we are talking about this. I don't think they're going to have the opportunity or the assets to swap with the Bears, right? Unless they're going to give them. I mean, shoot, I think
Devontae.
that'd be the only people they're interested in. And I don't know. I mean, the Bears have the money to afford them, but I don't know
Yeah.
if the Raiders are going to give up on them just like that, right? So I'm very, very interested to see how this Josh McDaniels offseason plays out because he's going to keep his job. He hasn't been fired yet, and we've been calling for it all year. But I really, really just, and we'll talk more about it. We can move on to talk week 18 a little bit more, but I wouldn't be shocked if it's Jared Stidham for 18 games next year. Just going to put that out there.
Yeah, I really wouldn't be either. Truth be told, I could see them taking a guy in the second round.
Or they make a
But
Garoppolo move. Like it's, maybe it's you draft a guy in the
Andy
second
Dalton.
round.
I don't know why. I think they're getting Andy Dalton. And I think he's just gonna be there.
Devontae's gonna hold out for the rest of his career. He might just retire. He's like, I'm retired. He's gonna pull a Gronk.
Yeah, hey, you know what? More power to him. More power to him. He's got that kind of pull.
He does for now. He is 30 though. Clock's ticking.
This is true. The Saturday, the other one was Titans Jags. No,
that was Saturday.
Prime time.
Well, Chiefs Raiders was Thursday. This was Saturday. Or no, they were both Saturday. Sorry, there was no Thursday night game here.
No worries, man. That was just the afternoon, but then the night, I took the Titans because I thought just experience, but Jaguars are hot, man. And, I'm not going to crap all over Trevor Lawrence's parade because for the year he's been solid. But they have not won like their last 3 games because of him. I saw the stats.
No, you're not wrong.
He's thrown a touchdown and ran for one and then had a pick
But what
he's
doing well is he's not turning the football over.
Which is definitely different.
Trevor Lawrence right now is obviously he's taking that step. And we've seen these games where he shows up and just 353 touchdowns, like 5 incompletions, right? And he looks immaculate. And then when he has the off day, you're absolutely right. It's not all there, right? But they're finding ways to win. And go look at Brady's numbers through the years. I mean, he has games like this. So I'm not concerned if that's your question.
Oh, no, I'm not concerned. I actually just wanted to point out how the Jags have been able to win.
Yeah, I'm actually more
I think that's
encouraged about their roster.
Actually, in the course of these 3 weeks, too, they've only given up an average of, I think it was 7.8 points because they gave up
Is it really that low?
Yeah. They have been on fire these past couple weeks, and then even just overall this back half of the season to close it out. Wow. So they actually are one of my I don't know. And what it is a sleeper team for this playoffs in this AFC. It's a sleeper team.
Depending on who they play.
They're hot. They play the Chargers.
They play the Chargers. You know what, man?
Yeah. That pick looks pretty good on paper, doesn't it?
I could see them pulling that off. This is an interesting topic of discussion, man. The Chargers and the Jaguars. That's
quite a game. Yeah. Because Jaguars hammered them in I almost said San Diego, Los Angeles. It was week 3, but it was 38.
Now it's in Jacksonville. I think it was Sean Payton last week was talking about these teams. He was referring to Jacksonville and Tampa Bay.
Right.
And he was like, every year there's one of these teams that comes from this horrible division and they win a playoff game because they're at home and they just have nothing to lose, right? And then he brings up the
Yeah.
Beast Quake and how they were 11-5 and they had to go into
Prior
Seattle.
experience.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But he's not wrong, man. He's not wrong.
He's
Home
not.
field in the playoffs goes a super long way. And we'll touch on this in a bit. But when you have Tom Brady at the helm and you have home field in the playoffs or a home game in the playoffs, it
Does
goes a long
something.
way, man.
Does something, yeah.
What's your take? You know, they're really injury riddled, so I don't know if we can really hammer them. But what's your take on the Titans this year, man? Really a fall from glory.
I really am not, because injuries happen to every team. Something like in the NFL, one of the most physical sports, you have to just kind of deal with. Um, but I do pull the card out for like reasonable things, right? Like CMC goes down or something. It's like, well, you should expect. Okay. Running backs are replaceable. Like the Titans, it's like every year they have the most players on IR. And I think we brought this up a couple weeks ago.
We
It's like
did.
maybe it's Vrabel's coaching, something like that. But that's like not, you can't really, in my eyes, compare them to other teams and be like, this is what are they going to look like next year? They're going to look different just coming back healthy, like just getting all their starters back.
Yeah, I mean,
The fact they're
Treylon Burks spent
competitive,
half the season on the sideline, and
yeah,
he was really good anytime he showed up as that AJ Brown replacement.
right. And they didn't have Tannehill for this really crucial stretch to get in, and who knows, kind of with the carousel next year, what that situation is going to look like. Not saying he's bad, but I won't be shocked if Tennessee goes for an upgrade. Um, yeah, it's tough for me to say it's like a disappointing season because like obviously anytime you miss playoffs, it's disappointing. But it's probably like they have the most excuses, if that makes sense.
I have
For
a
like
hot take.
it's yeah,
I
I'm hearing it.
I think in 2 to 3 years' time, Derrick Henry will be the next version of Todd Gurley. I think his pitch count is
He already
really high.
he already surpassed Todd Gurley in my eyes, man.
Oh, yes, he is. But in the sense that where Todd Gurley was on top of the league, and 2 years later, you were like, man, what happened to Todd Gurley? I think it's going to take one injury from Derrick Henry, and the dominoes are going to fall, and he's never going to be the same player. He's 29 years old, man. Like, the clock is ticking, and he is just not the type of runner that lasts. Those guys don't last. And so, Hall of Fame career in my eyes, but
Yes,
the
absolutely.
second half of this hot take is I think this division is getting handed over to Jacksonville for the cup for the foreseeable future.
We thought that in 2017, and they
We
didn't have a
did,
quarterback. Now they
we
do,
did,
and the
yes, and
rest of the division does not have a
and
quarterback. So that I'll agree with you.
what's more significant to me is they have the coach as well, right?
Doug
Mike
Peterson, yeah.
Rabel has just run a tear over the AFC South for the past couple of years. I know there's been teams, the Texans in 18, I think, with Watson won 12 games or whatever. But since then, the Titans have been just utterly dominant, and they have not been able to translate in the playoffs. And I think it's because they're playing lesser competition for 8 games of their year. And that's the
Yeah.
bottom line. So I think that the Titans, Vrabel can get them to a wild card team, but they best do a soft rebuild because they are not anywhere close to where they need to be to contend in the next 3 years. So
I hear you.
maybe that's a medium take, maybe not quite hot, but I feel pretty strongly about it. I don't think they're making the playoffs next year. Maybe they sneak into the wild card. I could be wrong, but I think Jacksonville wins this division next year easily.
Yeah. No, it's because they get Calvin Ridley too next year. The
Oh yeah,
Jaguars
we
do.
haven't even.
That's a
Dude,
huge deal that
that's a
people aren't
huge deal that
remembering.
nobody's talking about.
Yeah, because he
I
was really
mean,
good with Atlanta, and they were not good. Like they were in and
yeah,
out of coaches. It was Matt Ryan, and what you saw what he did this year.
yeah.
It's a very entertaining to look at the idea of like the Jags. Be like this is a team that they're gonna roll. I mean, they really are getting all the pieces together. And literally with Derrick Henry, my take is this. I think once he gets over 30, you're gonna see the fall off, like you brought up. He's gonna turn like that Jerome Bettis type. Even Marshawn Lynch in his early career, where like he's good for 3-4 yards, but he's not gonna have his 200-yard days. He's not gonna have even really a
Well,
lot
I
of
mean,
100-yard
let's be
days.
realistic. How effective has he been on teams not in the AFC South this season? I'm not saying he's been
I'd
bad.
have to go look at the receipts.
I'm not saying he's
I
been
don't know off the top
bad,
of
but
my head.
he's not what he was, right? Like I'm just going to be honest.
Relative to what are you
This could be a
doing?
horrible take. Maybe I'm just statistically wrong, but
It may not look good in the next 2 years, but I'm with you. And like 29 years old, man. Like it's it. But did you hear that for running back?
Oh no,
Next year's 30.
27 is usually the landmark for running backs. That's like
Yeah.
statistically when they all fall off. But Derrick Henry against non-AFC South teams. Let me pull this up. All right, 82 yards against. Nope, that's tennis. Against the Giants. 25 against Buffalo. 85 against the Rams. And he goes for 114 against the Colts. He had 102 against the Commanders. 128 against the Colts. 219 against Houston, 115 against Kansas City, 53 against Denver, 87 against Green Bay, 38 against Cincinnati, 30 against Philadelphia, 121 against Jacksonville, 104 against the Chargers, 126 against the Texans, and then he had 109 last week against Jacksonville. So I think there's a little credence to what I'm saying here. There outliers.
Actually is a lot.
There's
like
outliers,
1 or 2 outliers.
When it comes to good teams, he was not as effective. I mean, 13 for 25 against Buffalo. I know they got blown out, and that game script was terrible all the way back in week 2.
But that's the problem.
But
that's the problem with
not
Titans,
too long ago, 30 yards against the Philly, right?
Yeah.
38 against the Bengals, 87 against Green Bay. These, 53 against the Broncos, who are a very good defense. But you get my point. I think he's going to.
They can only win one way.
I think you're right. I think it's a little bit of both. He's going to stick around, but he's not going to be close to what he was. And I didn't draft him this year in fantasy, and I'm glad I didn't.
It's sure he had keep a top going down. Season, it's not his fault.
I'm not drafting him next year. So,
right.
Yeah, my take is that the Jaguars are going to win. They're going to have a good run of dominance against this division, maybe for a long time, depending on how Trevor Lawrence really develops. We'll see, but.
No doubt.
That takes us to the Patriots and Bills game from Sunday on the noon segments. And this was just, this was sweet.
That was over the first play.
It was so well. I mean, they were down when he had his second kickoff return. So, I mean, the Patriots put up a decent fight.
Knew the Bills were winning. It couldn't have happened any other way. It is weird seeing the Patriots not in the playoffs again. But I think they got to look in the mirror as well. I think they got some restructuring and retooling. Really, any talent I think on that roster would go a long way.
This sounds bad, but I don't think they're going to win very well or win a lot again until Belichick retires. And that, a couple years ago,
they'll be competitive.
Yes, they're just going to be this fringe playoff team. Like they're not going to win another Super Bowl because I just don't. It's just such a dark cloud of if I go sign with the Patriots, is Belichick going to be there in 3 years if I sign a 4-year deal, right? Like he's 74 years old. I know he's coming back next year, but he's on this 1-year rental thing where it's I don't really know unless they catch lightning in a bottle. They're not going to get guys in free agency to commit there long term for this exact reason, right? And that's the number one thing they need right now is weapons. So that's not really a hot take in my eyes, but yeah.
No, it's just I want to say the game was predictable because game script wise, having a guy run back 2 touchdowns is not predictable. But I also was gonna be a little shocked if the Bills didn't win this. I mean, they just had every motivation in the world, and it's not like they're resting starters. It's just a team that again shows how scary they're going to be going into this playoff picture. I mean, think about it. Patriots, this was their shot to get in. So I'm assuming Belichick dove deep in every one of his bags of plays and whatever, and they still lost. So
let's be honest, outside of 14 points from special teams, it's 28-23. I don't think the Patriots.
You can say that, but it's swung the momentum of the game. Special teams, whether people want to agree with it or not, and I'm going to hold it to him. Matthew Slater has been a special team Pro Bowl since 2010, and Belichick is a guy that will keep guys on for special teams. So when you give up 2 touchdowns, I'm going to hold it. against them, be like,
Yeah.
yo, like this is
Oh,
hey,
it's no excuse at
hey,
all. I mean,
yeah,
special teams is a part of the game, but I don't think that the Patriots. They just didn't have it this year.
no,
That's just the bottom line. And Jacoby Myers is really the reason why they missed the playoffs, but they weren't going to go anywhere in the playoffs. They're just
first out, yeah,
they're just missing a burst, I guess would be what I say. But
yeah,
as for the Bills, man, I think I've kind of joined the camp, and I'm interested to hear your take here. I think they got screwed on the number one seed in multiple ways. I believe there was precedence that you're supposed to use when a game doesn't get played. You're supposed to use the win percentage, and they decided to go neutral site for AFC Championship, which I guess is not a screwing, right? So they're going to be fine if they do play Kansas City. But
yeah,
I don't know. What are your thoughts here? The Bengals kind of got the
yeah.
front
It's
end, but
because I was said the game full of that, and it's you can't be like, well, Bengals were going to win the game because it was the first quarter, but it wasn't like the Bills. It was 7-3. The Bengals were marching at the time of the play happened, and infamous play, and the Bills like at a neutral site. I'm not really sure
they might be
how
at the
like how
advantage. Is that what you're going to say?
yeah, because here's the thing, like in Buffalo, it's cold, so ever, and like when Josh Allen and that offense is in a dome,
I
I actually
disagree,
do think
man.
it helps them. I think
I
it does.
disagree. Buffalo for decades
They lost to the
has
Vikings at home, and the
succeeded.
Vikings are not good.
Are we counting that as a loss?
I mean, it's a loss, so I'm gonna count
it's
it as a
it's
loss.
the
Yeah.
freakiest thing to happen since I don't even know.
Well,
But
they wouldn't have had miscues if they were in a dome.
look, I'll say this: Buffalo's home field advantage is in the playoffs, especially is up there in top of the leagues when they're actually good in the playoffs. It's the reason they went to 4 Super Bowls in a row. Uh, Teams can't go there and win. That's the bottom line. Teams don't like playing in the snow, and they're good at it. So, regardless of style difference, I think that they're fine. They would have a better chance of winning. I don't think you'll debate this. Better chance of winning against Kansas City in Buffalo or any other team in the AFC in Buffalo than a neutral site.
Trying to think if there is a team I could debate it for.
I mean, imagine if the Chargers had to go to Buffalo. That's over right there, right? If Miami
That's a
has to go
valid
back
point.
up, if Miami has to go back up to Buffalo,
I guess
it's
yeah, the
over
way
right
the
there.
way the AFC has worked this year, you're not getting those like really like the Titans teams where it's like run heavy defense, like
Oh, it's
that's
the
their strong
Ravens, but they
suit.
don't have Lamar. I don't even know how
Yeah,
they're here,
right.
actually, if we're being real. But
Exactly. Yeah, and honestly that really might be the only team, but even then it's like not a crazy advantage. I don't know. I do agree, I guess, in the sense that, like, yeah, not getting home field sucks, but I also don't think they're like guaranteed to make it. It's just like a weird situation.
I'm just
It
saying,
really
oh,
is.
it's a horrible situation, but I'm
I
just
don't really
saying
know how
that
to.
Buffalo's chances of beating Kansas City greatly went down if they have to face them in the AFC Championship. If they had beat Cincinnati and gotten the number one seed, right? And the same goes for
Mhm.
Kansas City, right? Like I'd be just as upset that like we don't get to know if we would have had another home AFC Championship game, right? Like now we have to go
True. Yeah,
somewhere
they didn't
else.
do anything wrong. Yeah.
Yeah, so Cincinnati's just as screwed with the coin flip thing, and we can talk about Joe Mixon's celebration and stuff, but they got that home
Yeah,
game,
that's
so it
funny.
doesn't matter. But I wanted to see, and I said this at the very beginning of the year, I wanted to see the AFC Championship go through Buffalo because I felt like that was Buffalo's best chance to win. I'm not saying they can't win in Kansas City. I'm not saying they can't win in a neutral site. They don't even have to go to Kansas City. They don't even have to think about it. So,
Right. I think that helps
um,
too. Not
yeah,
having to go and face the demon in Arrowhead. That's, I
yes,
guess, what I was trying to make with the take is if it's in Buffalo. Totally agree with you. I just think a neutral site now, like who knows who's going to win that? Chiefs,
yeah. And
Bills.
where are they going to
I
play
really
it?
think that's going to be a track
Where
meet.
are they going to play it? I know people are tweeting like high school stadiums and stuff like just
That
cities.
would be
They're like,
great.
let's
If they
play it.
run it in Detroit again, Bills are 2-0 there.
That's true. That's true. I mean, you got to pick somewhere too that's like, and Bill's Mafia is going to travel. You got to pick somewhere that's somewhat in the middle, right? Like maybe they go to Cleveland, right? Like somewhere
Go
in
to Los
the.
Angeles.
No, that's too far. That's too far. That's no.
Go
You got to
to
do. It's got to be
go to
outside.
Atlanta. What about Atlanta? Go to a dome. Atlanta,
I
Mercedes
prefer them.
Benz.
I prefer
That's
them to go
South.
outside,
They
but
just whoop.
you could do that. You could do that.
Right.
I prefer them to play it outside since both teams do have an outdoor stadium. But
I think it'd be cool. I just don't think they will. And for a
no,
neutral site,
if
they're
it's a
going to
neutral
take the
site,
most ready available.
they'll take Atlanta's not a bad thought, or something like
New Orleans, maybe
New Orleans or something like that. But
middle of the road.
Yeah, we'll have to see. I mean, time will tell, and we'll dive into the playoffs as the week goes on. But we'll move on. Browns, Steelers. I don't have much to add other than that man, Mike Tomlin, did it again, man. He
Yeah,
found a
shame
way.
they didn't get that playoff spot. I think they have more fight in them than the Dolphins, but
I just
kind of way it goes.
I do just want to say, man, Kenny Pickett really coming out strong to close out the year. I am.
Yeah. You love to see it as a Steelers
I
fan.
love to see it, and he's brought with his success. He kind of revived Najee Harris towards the end of the year a little bit, who just started the year on a complete dud and was not good. Not saying he had a great year. I think he had a sophomore slump, and I'm hoping he bounced back. But we could be looking at a modern day Trent Richardson, so we'll have to keep him on Trent watch. So. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, your thoughts on the Steelers?
Wish they were in the playoffs. Really, it's just I think if they get that Dolphins spot, it would have been interesting. I don't think they really do anything. No, they have a bright future going to next season. You can give them that. They finished out the season strong with a lot of young guys. They're only going to get better and probably make some additions. I think honestly that AFC North is going to be a bloodbath next year. Because the Browns, I'm not saying Sean Watson.
What's your thoughts on the Browns?
I think that might be the more interesting story because I think they're going to make some changes. Clowney won't be back.
He's going to have an off season. He's going to have an off season with his receivers.
Right. That's going to make a world of difference, and I'm just kind of curious to see how it all turns out. That could be a kind of the AFC East of this year might be the AFC North next year.
My main concern with the Browns, and I think they're going to change this because they started to figure it out, but the play calling when they transitioned to Watson from Stefanski was not great. They were trying to run these option things with Chubb, and this is a very brief
They need an off season for that.
I think they're going to be better with an off season. I think I saw some hot takes where Stefanski's just not a good fit for Deshaun Watson. We need to look elsewhere. No, I wouldn't write him off like that. I mean, when you have to play 11 games with one guy and then you're switching
two different styles too. I might add,
styles of player. Yeah, I think that I think you give them an off season and then we can talk about it if they're still bad. But I do have a question for you too regarding the Browns. Well, somewhat Browns, but with the QB carousel talk and everything, this guy's going to get a job next year. And I kind of want to know where you think he might end up. Where are we seeing Jacoby Brissett next fall?
Oh, I'm trying to think the best location for. I don't want him to go to a team that's just going to throw his career away.
Can I go first? Because I hinted at it and I want to bring it up. I think next fall Jacoby Brissett will be in a QB competition with Jarrett Stidham.
Yeah, if it's not the Red Rifle, that would make sense.
I think Red Rifle's a decent thought, but
I like him going to the Buccaneers if Brady doesn't return. I don't think you lose a whole lot if you plug in Jacoby Brissett there.
That's not bad, or somewhere like the Saints.
That
just
too.
Bounce from Dalton to
Brissett, who I definitely think is way more efficient as a passer. It's very interesting. There's so many. They could go anywhere. A lot of these guys. I think even Winston's going to be on the market for.
I think there's two teams that are absolutely drafting a quarterback in the first round, and that is the Texans and the Colts. And the other guys that might get picked in the first round, I can't really predict what teams because you have two really good prospects, and then you kind of drop off, and it's okay, are the Jets going to make the move for Will Levis, or are they going to bring in Jimmy Garoppolo, or are they going to make a run at Brady? What's better? And if I had to guess, the Jets are not going to draft another quarterback in the first round. That would be, I think they've learned their lesson.
I would hope so. Especially when they
But
hit on all their other picks, like Brees Hall, Sauce Gardner. Like, the list
yeah,
goes on, man. Like,
yeah,
just draft somebody else.
yeah. But it's interesting. I'm putting it down on paper. I think that Brissett ends up in Vegas, and that's the best they can do. I think they backed themselves into a corner, and
Definitely.
Stidham played good enough in the 2 game sample size where it's like, oh, we actually might have something here. But then it's also like he's a 3rd round pick, so maybe it was just a fluke, right? So they kind of,
Right.
if they'd have given him 4 games, they would have got more out of it. I just don't get it. I really
Yeah,
don't.
they're in a tough spot now. That's for sure.
I really don't. All right, Bengals, Ravens. The Bengals win the division. They go 12-4. Ravens are still in the playoffs, fine at 10-7. I don't really have anything crazy to add here. I mean, the Ravens started Anthony Brown at quarterback. We both picked the Bengals to win this game. The Ravens are not winning a playoff game if Lamar can't play, and I don't think he can. I don't know if he's
No,
going to be
and
healthy.
listen, even his first game back, do you really trust that he's gonna go off? Because that's what they're gonna need him to do. He's gonna
Well,
have a great day for the Bengals to go down.
mhm. I think the only way the Bengals lose this wild card game is just some division matchup cheese.
Pretty
I mean, they only
much
beat the Ravens with
close
no
game.
crowd by 9 this week, so or 11. Sorry,
Well, we say
but
only, but that's 2 possessions. I
no,
mean,
I agree. But it's it wasn't a blowout, is what I'm trying to say, and they know each other well. You never know,
well, the Ravens have been
especially if they
winning
get Lamar
without
back.
Lamar. Right. Like, I
Yeah.
think it's a good team. It's just not great like the Bengals. Like John Harbaugh does have that track record of it really, honestly, for being legit, they're the Steel without Lamar Jackson, they're like the current Steelers. And it's like they can only put out so much offensively. They're not going to be able to get to 24 points, especially on a wild card. I don't see that happening. If Lamar is there, then it's a conversation. Maybe they scrape by, kick a field goal at the end and win. But yeah, I just don't think they really have the ammo going into this wild card weekend.
I would concur with that. So the next game, I'm going to zip ahead because the next game on the docket from Week 18 to talk about is Vikings Bears. Now we both picked the Vikings, right? So the game itself was pretty inconsequential, but
Yeah,
saw some people on
Bears.
Twitter to zip ahead here to the Texans game. Saw some people on Twitter asking for the Bears to build a Lovie Smith statue, and I kind of have to agree, man. I think that Lovey's, and we can talk more about how dumb I think this decision is from the Texans and why I was not expecting it. But they fired Lovey Smith, and I'm just going to go on a limb and I'm going to say I'm going to guess that he knew he was getting fired, and he went for 2 to screw the Texans out of getting the #1 overall pick. And now
I think so too.
they will not have their choice between Bryce Young and CJ Stroud unless they trade with the Bears. And oh man, this is
I think they will though. Like, if the Bears stand put,
the
they
Bears
don't
are
have to
not
worry
standing
about it.
put. I'm
But they're
sorry,
not, from what I'm hearing.
they are
Yeah,
not
I
standing.
don't think Will Anderson's the #1 pick talent, and
No,
that's really just the best edge value for that type of pick you can
you
get.
could get him at
So
3. You could literally get him at 3. So what's the
right, I
point?
think they
What's
should
the
trade
point
back.
in staying put, right? Like what?
It would be typical Bears, man. They didn't need to trade up to get Trubisky, and they did. But we'll see.
No, I think that they've
We'll
learned their
see.
lesson. They've got their guy. He's had a great year. They've got the
Mhm.
most free agent. I mean, dude, I saw somebody tweet
Yeah.
this, and I have to somewhat agree. But right now, as of post whatever Sunday was, is the best time to be a Bears fan since January of 1986. And I have to.
Wow.
I mean,
Wow.
outside of maybe Devin Hester returning the opening kickoff to a Super Bowl, I have to
Yeah.
agree, man. They are in a really great spot, and I like more power to them, man. They got the #1 pick somehow. They did it. Now, Bears
Mhm.
fans do need to relax on Twitter because they're taking it too far and acting like they weren't just like 3-14, and they're saying they're going to the playoffs next year. And they still have to get free agency and the draft right before we can start talking about
Exactly.
that. And that has yet to be seen as a possibility. So,
Yeah.
but
Looks
your
like a Nick
thoughts?
story. I'm sorry. It's gonna be we can get KD and Kyrie, and then we'll draft Zion, and then we're gonna like win the chip. And they're gonna come away with like, oh geez, trying to think of
RJ
like,
Barrett.
yeah, it's gonna be probably some like receivers. It's gonna be like, I don't know, contract situation. It's gonna be like Keenan Allen or something. They're gonna hype up these dudes and
Yeah.
like we're going in,
It's
and
gonna
it's just gonna be a
it's
mess,
gonna
like
be
it always
like
is.
it's gonna be like when Dwight Howard and Steve Nash joined the Lakers with Kobe, and then it's
Yeah,
just
and they're unstoppable. And it's like,
yeah, yeah.
we'll see how things roll. But from a Viking standpoint, nothing really changed.
No, they're
They
still the
won the
biggest
game that they
frauds.
needed to.
They're the biggest
Yeah.
frauds in the thing. And Jake, I know
Yeah.
you're listening. I told you that your guys' season is going to last 7 days longer than the Packers, so it really doesn't matter that much.
Yeah, no, it's gonna be fun seeing the Giants, take care of business on
I think they could
Sunday
be.
or Saturday. I don't know.
I think they could be the Giants, but outside of the
They could.
Giants, I don't know. But we're not talking about them right now. I do have a question for you. The Texans fired Lovie Smith. I was trying to think of his name. Lovie Smith, one and done. This is now the second year in a row that they fired a head coach after their first season. Is this a sign of just the most dysfunctional organization in football?
Yeah. It all started with Bill O'Brien. I mean, this has been 6-7 years of dysfunction. You think Sean Watson, the whole thing, nobody actually knew what was going on.
Well, I don't even, people
still don't even know what
this.
actually is going on.
People forget about this. Tyrann Mathieu left disgruntled. D-Hop left.
One of the worst trades. You trade for David Johnson, like
and a fourth.
Kind of Madden trade was that. There's such a lost cause. I feel bad for anybody that is truly.
Even JJ Watt left disgruntled.
Yeah, that's problem with these expansion franchises. If you don't get competent ownership from the expand, like what's the point? And boy, like good for like the Jags. They were like a recent expansion team.
Oh, they're older.
They're like 99s.
Yeah, I want to say like 95 or something.
Yeah, actually, probably it was definitely 90s.
Because they came in with the Panthers, and I know the Panthers were like in the NFC Championship when they played when the Packers won the Super Bowl. So,
got you. Yeah.
But regardless, I do agree. The Texans, they're more dysfunctional than the Commanders at this point. Just going to be honest. This is pretty brutal.
Yeah. No, it's bad. Like anytime Texans win, it's like a feat.
Lately, I just don't get it. I don't get why are you hiring coaches and then giving them 1 year, giving them a terrible roster, and then
literally worse than the NFL.
Right? This isn't like Nathaniel Hackett where they like give him Russell Wilson, who was supposedly this great quarterback, an incredible defense, and a very competent offense. I know Javonte Williams went down, but weapons on offense, a top 5 defense, and a supposed top 15 quarterback. Top 10, but who has looked better ever since Nathaniel Hackett left. So let's put that on the table as well, right? But this is not that situation. This is before the season. We said this is the worst roster in the NFL, and they will get the number 1 pick. And Lovie Smith found a way to not make that happen.
Which, honestly, just from that alone, I think realistically, I don't think he'll get him. He'll probably get defensive coordinator interviews. But like realistically, a head coaching job. I'm sorry, this team shouldn't have even won those 3 games. And there's a lot of times they could have won a couple more.
I just don't
get this wasn't a team that wasn't competitive, and they had by far and away, in my opinion, one of the worst rosters in the league.
Well, here's the other issue here, okay, that nobody's mentioned yet. What coach is going to want to coach there now? Right?
Exactly. You get
fired
1 year
3 head coaches in 4 years.
Yeah.
You fired 3 head coaches in 4 years. Who are you going to get to take that job when they know they're getting a bad roster, right? This isn't like they're inheriting a chance to win a Super Bowl on 1 year deal, right? No, This is like we're giving you the worst roster in football and you need to fix it, but we're not going to do anything to help you fix it. And if you don't fix it, we're going to fire you. It's ludicrous. It doesn't make any sense. How can they not commit to 2 years with anybody? I mean, Lovie Smith I'm not saying he's a world beater, but he's a great defensive mind, and he had success in Chicago.
Yeah, and he kept that team competitive, which all year long, I think is all you could ask. 3 wins was like the expectation. Anybody outperforming that is, I'd be like, oh, is that Vince Lombardi out there? Like,
yeah,
I'm
yeah.
sorry, when you're switching snaps between Davis Mills and Jeff Driscoll, like, oh my, the whole thing is just whatever. But we're spending too much time on that team. Oh my gosh,
I just
we
think
already know it's.
I mean, yeah, we're spending a lot of time, but I just want to highlight like this is just. I said it all year too. I was like, they're not going to fire Lovie Smith. Lovie Smith's on the hot seat. They just hired him. They can't fire a guy they just hired, right? Like they're not even giving him
You
time.
would think that.
Yeah, they're just that bad. They're that dumb. I mean, they might not have a coach next year. I genuinely I wouldn't take the job.
I wouldn't either.
Unless I just want the money.
Within.
You know, maybe Sean Payton will just rip them off for like hundreds of millions of dollars and then just retire after 1 year.
It's gonna be like Brian Cushing, bro. It's gonna be some, or like Andre. They're gonna bring back somebody. It's
gonna be bad. It's gonna be some. No, you know what's gonna be? It's gonna be some college guy who's never got an NFL shot.
Yeah, like Matt Rule, Steve Sarkisian.
It's gonna be bad. But okay. Vikings Bears, we simmed over that. Jets Dolphins. This was actually interesting. I picked the Dolphins to win this game, and they actually got in. You had the Jets. It's a close enough game. It is what it is.
Flacco versus Thompson, man.
11-6. Flacco versus Skylar Thompson. Do you think we're going to see Tua next week?
No. He's still in protocol from the interview today. I don't think he plays the rest of the year. I don't think he should.
I don't think he should. I don't think they can risk that. Plus, they got a nice dance with division rival Buffalo Bills, who are emotionally the most dangerous team in football right now.
Yeah. You have a team. Just wait for everybody to be healthy. Don't jeopardize your franchise quarterback at the moment and play again next year. Like they're just, all the things are going wrong for him right now.
Yeah. And anybody calling for Mike McDaniel's job is a freaking idiot.
An idiot. Yeah, I'm sorry. You just don't know football. That's how you tell me, like, you are saying you like watch and appreciate football. You don't actually watch football, because some of these dudes' play designs are insane.
It's not even that. I mean, this guy, they were really good this year, and they just, I think partially, they cooled off at the wrong time, but
in games, they had to go from QB to QB. When do you go from like Tua to T Bridge, and then the next week it's T Bridge to Thompson, and then the next week it's Thompson? Well, maybe they
don't lose their last set, or 6 of the last 7 or whatever it was, if Tua's playing all those games.
Absolutely. Even if they go 500 across the way, they still finish like 11-6. Like this, the record's got a lot of people fooled. It's a good football team that's just not healthy.
Yeah. All right. So one of the biggest mistakes I made this week was, excuse me, but sorry,
great mute there.
Yeah, I didn't want to. I sneezed, so sorry. I didn't
blow anybody's ears off.
Blow your guys' ears off. So you're welcome, headphone users. But one of my biggest mistakes this week was not trusting my gut and taking the Falcons against the Bucks, because I knew the Bucks were not going to play anybody at all because it's Brady and he's 50 years old. But Falcons with a meaningless win over the 8-9 division champion Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Any thoughts here?
Brady probably wanted it. It's gonna be like the first QB to win a team with a losing record of the Super Bowl. Like, bro needs every record possible. All right, like he totally. This is. I'm calling it right now.
Okay, we're on the same page, because I think they're going to beat Dallas.
I do too. I do too. Especially after seeing that they lost to the Commanders, and I'm sorry, but the Cowboys were playing their starters. Cooper Rush threw one attempt at the end of the game. Like, Prescott looked bad. That team looked bad, and they have been cold. They almost lost to the Texans, who we just brought up earlier. Like, they're not really
ice cold, but they're cooling off for sure.
They don't scare me. That's for sure. Just like the Vikings, it's not.
Nobody in the NFC scares me. That's why I think that the Bucs have a chance to actually get there.
Absolutely.
But they will definitely beat the Cowboys this weekend at home. I will die on this hill. I will die on this hill. But okay, we talked about Texans, Colts, Cardinals, 49ers. Hey, it happened. It happened today. Did you see the headline?
Oh yeah, Kingsbury's gone.
Ah,
Which
I'm so happy, man. That's their only
who
chance.
knew? Yeah, who would have thunk it? They get blown out. And listen, when you bring in an offensive mind, and he really didn't do very well at all year offensively. Like they didn't have
Well,
many
no,
games to
there's
look at.
this. I want to know the numbers. I really do. What did they finish last year? What was the record last year?
Oh, when they were like 7-1, and then they finished, I believe, 11-6,
So 11-6 plus. So they're
5.
they're 15-19. Sorry, I did that backwards. They're 8-19 since
Mm,
they lost to the Packers on Sunday Night Football last year. And I'm not even bringing that up because I'm a Packers fan. I genuinely I remember
it's
that
been
game
bad.
because
Yeah.
they were 7-1. They lost, and it's been horrible ever since. And I don't know
Mm,
what changed in that game, but man, uh, I'm just going to be honest. I don't think Kyler is a franchise quarterback. I think he's a locker room cancer, and he's probably going to end up in Arizona and play out a couple of years. But at some point, somebody's going to draw the line and be like, dude, we can't. You're not worth the problems.
yeah,
Um,
I'd like to see what he does with a different coach. I
that's
really
true.
do. I
I
don't think
mean,
Kingsbury really helped him. But Kingsbury seems like more of a coordinator to me. I think he's can do things times, but he's not like he's very laid back. When you watch Hard Knocks, like this dude would be like cool to like just chill with, like hang out and like pick his brain, but he's not like commanding the guys like, hey, we need to win. Like very like monotone, basic football things. And you watch like Dan Campbell, it's like dude, this guy's electric. Like
yeah,
you want to play for this
you want to
guy.
run
Like
through a
there's a
brick wall
big
for this guy.
difference,
Yeah,
right? Major difference. So that's just no shocker there. I am curious who they bring in though, because they bring somebody in similar personality wise. I don't know what that really changes. I
yeah.
think I'm just really curious as like candidate wise,
Well, I
who
saw
they
their
think is
GM
going to be a lot
resign
better.
too. So
I think he's
whatever,
taking
like
time away. I don't know if those rights.
I saw that, and then I saw he resigned.
He's like actually resigning.
Yeah.
Okay, which I think he
So
should. He got arrested for a DUI. And then yeah.
he's been there since like '99 though. So he's been there a long time,
Uh,
and yeah.
probably do.
So
Probably do for change.
probably do. I mean, one Super Bowl appearance in that time. And that
Yeah,
was with an
that's a
aging
long
Kurt
leash,
Warner.
man. Jeez.
They haven't been horrible though. That's the thing is the Cardinals are always just this like mediocre, like, oh, if they got this one position fixed, they'd be right there. And it's like,
Yeah.
nah, they ain't gonna get it fixed, right? So
Right.
yeah. That takes us Cowboys Commanders. You briefly mentioned it. I really don't have much to add here other than the Commanders are a better team than their record shows, in my opinion.
It's
And the
just what they
Cowboys,
do.
this is just classic Cowboys. It didn't matter at the end, right? The Eagles won the game, so the Cowboys
Mhm.
weren't going to win the division. But
Either way, it's concerning.
I voiced my opinion on the Cowboys and their playoff prospects, so that's all I have to say.
Yeah.
Um, however, the good news, and we'll get to Sunday night, but um, the other good news about the playoffs is Geno didn't write back, and he made it in, man. That's the silver lining with the Packers missing. I'm very happy for Geno Smith. Takes the
Yeah.
Seahawks, takes the Seahawks in overtime against the Rams to the playoffs, and sets the franchise passing record for the Seattle Seahawks. Can't really write a better script.
No, it's fair. It's a fair point. Um, good for Gino. Like it's I salty my team to get that spot, sure. But ultimately it's 49ers have won 10 straight and the Seahawks played poorly against that team both times this year. Gonna be shocked if the Seahawks do something differently that propels them. But yeah, it's definitely a great comeback story and whatnot. I mean, no one saw Seahawks. A lot of people saw them probably, in
No,
the
they
top five with their own pick in the draft. Not
yeah
with the is it Rams? No, Broncos pick. My bad.
yeah yeah
But
yeah. So they're gonna make the playoffs and have the number top. Well, it's a top five pick. I
it's
think it's
like
number
3 or 4.
four. I think it's four because the
Yeah.
Cardinals have three. Um,
Mhm.
they're in a decent spot as a franchise, man. Especially if you get three and you say, "Hey, maybe they do." I'm just flirting with this idea. I don't think they need to, but maybe they trade up with the Bears and they take that quarterback and they sit him behind a guy who's been around a long time like Geno Smith. You know, I don't think that's the
That's a lot
Seahawks.
of capital.
I don't think that's the Seahawks' MO because I think they'd have to give up too much to get there. And like I said, they don't draft quarterbacks high. Russell Wilson was a third round pick. I mean, he's been there forever. They just got Geno Smith off of waivers for crying out loud, and he's talking about the playoffs. So
Right.
I don't think they'll do that. But it is, maybe. But with the fourth pick, man, they'll be able to do something. Maybe it's a key defensive player. Maybe I don't know, but we'll get more into draft, preview as we get deeper into the off season. But I'm just happy. I would have rather seen the Lions make it, but I am happy for Geno. I just feel like the Seahawks, they're not going to win up. They're kind of limping into the playoffs. It feels like.
Yeah.
If the Lions had made it, they would have been smoking into the playoffs.
Yeah. No, I know exactly what you're saying.
Do you have anything to talk about with Eagles Giants? We might see this matchup again, honestly.
Yeah, it'll be an interesting matchup. Little rust from the Eagles part, but again, I don't know if there's like a whole lot of urgency. They're really playing like it the last couple of weeks. Honestly, we'll see if that bye hurts them or not.
Yeah, I mean,
every year it gets talked about.
They're not smoking into the playoffs. I'll say that. They're not smoking. They've not been. They're not 10 straight wins like the Niners.
Yeah,
and that's who you pick in the playoffs, right? Is the teams that are
something. Hot. It's something. It's not everything, but it's something to watch.
All right, I got a storyline for you as we move to the second to last game. Pretty sure the Broncos. Let me double check this, but the Broncos, yeah. Oh no, they lost to the Chiefs, so they get blown out on Christmas by the Rams, 51-14. Baker Mayfield hangs a 50 bomb on them. They fire Nathaniel. They come out, barely lose to the Chiefs. Russ has his best game of the year. He follows it up with the interim head coach with another pretty decent game, if you ask me. I mean, another 3 touchdown game. Yeah. Their roster is not there offensively. They'll get Javonte Williams back next year, but if they get the right guy, call me crazy, but I said this, they get the right guy, they're going to be good. Like Russ we know his floor, we know his ceiling. I think he's going to be somewhere right in the middle next year, and that's all they're going to need.
That is all they need. The worst part about this Broncos team is if they literally had any offense that wasn't the worst of all time. Like if you just spun a wheel of any offense and just this team is like 12-5. Like their defense was that good.
Yeah, and I mean, what's the number of games where if they'd have scored more than 17 points, they win?
It was like
almost double digits.
10. Like it was nuts. And that's why you don't have to convince me. I think they just get just a guy that is not Nathaniel Hackett, and they have an offense that is not one of the worst of all time.
Could be this one. Could be Sean Payton. I think
they get Sean Payton. I think that seems this might be an overreaction, but given what I've seen, I don't think they're going to lose a whole lot of people this year. I think that's a contender. Sean Payton, as crazy as that sounds,
but yeah,
I don't. You tell me Sean Payton isn't going to get like 2 or 3 touchdowns with any offense in like an important game, and furthermore, Russell Wilson is a veteran quarterback.
Let alone an offense that has, assuming they hold on to him and they don't do something crazy, because I could see a situation where like Cortland Sutton or Jerry Jeudy ends up in Chicago or something, right? I could see that.
Really
I don't know their contract situations. We'll have to dive into it later. But yeah, this could be the Sean Payton fit. I've heard Harbaugh thrown out there, but I think Sean Payton's a better fit. Sean Payton's on record as saying he's not going to go somewhere that doesn't have good ownership and good GM. That is Denver. There's a lot of job security when you go to Denver. It's a historically good franchise, new ownership in Denver. So I think that I could see that fit over Sean Payton going somewhere like Arizona or the Jets, or not the Jets. Who am I thinking of?
Texans.
That's what I was trying to think of. I don't know why I thought the Jets. Yeah. So
touch those jobs.
And that's if he comes out of retirement. I think he will, but we'll see. But as for the Chargers, it's very clear that they didn't care about this game.
Yeah. It was pretty, and even Herbert, given the circumstances, was fine, but then eventually they kind of pulled everybody.
Your thoughts on, we kind of talked about it, and maybe I'll save my takes for Jaguars Chargers for Thursday, but just gonna be honest, I don't see Brandon Staley winning a playoff game.
No, I don't love it either. Like the Chargers have been
You
good
know, and
lately. I just like
here's what's
Jags more.
interesting about this is you talk about hot teams and cold teams, and maybe my mind will change by Thursday. I'm not ruling it out, but the Chargers would have been absolutely smoking hot. They would have had won 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 straight if they win this game to roll into the playoffs. And then they're going to
Yeah.
play a 9-8 Jaguars team after winning 5 straight against somewhat formidable teams, but not really actually as I'm looking at it. So, but they lost this game is where I'm going with this. And that to me, I know it doesn't matter, but it does sometimes. This doesn't like this take I'm going in straight circles, and I know that, but like,
yeah,
that matters sometimes, in my opinion. And I don't know. Maybe my mind will change by Thursday, and I'm kind of looping around, but
no worries.
I don't like them. I don't like them. And then, Sunday Night Football, I'll give you the floor.
Oh boy.
He's got no
I don't know what to
words.
say, man. I even had all day to kind of think about it. I really didn't a whole lot. Work was busy, but it's almost just kind of feels surreal. Like if this were Rodgers' last game, I can't believe that's how it's going to end. The dumb plays, the undisciplinedness of like Clay Walker, Devontae Wyatt. It was just very head scratching. And, I even had conversations with people today about how I actually think it benefited the Lions knowing they were eliminated because they had nothing to lose. They're going for it on instances
Oh, they
when like
definitely,
not taking the field goal,
yeah,
where
they
in any
definitely,
other scenario you would.
or
Right.
the hook and ladder. They're not going to run
Yeah.
that play
Right. They
if
were
it's make
throwing
or
the
miss the
ball.
playoffs.
Yeah. Like going full on, like throwing plays, not little like flips and whatever, in like the final 4 minutes. And that's a point where if you're up playing for a playoff spot up for it, you're just going to kick the three and go try and get a touchdown, beat us. But they're like, no, let's just end this right here.
Yeah,
And
but
I
hats
respect
off.
that. But
Yeah, I have
and no,
mad
it is a
respect for
lot
them.
of respect. Mad respect. I think their structure needs to be looked at more. I think your head coach should be solely focused on the decisions because Dan Campbell made every like in terms of game flow, like risks and whatever, called everything perfect. But even you have their offense coordinator Ben Johnson's telling them what plays are going through, yada yada. But Ben Johnson calls an amazing game. I feel like every time I watch the Lions, they always have some creative play. I'm like, why has nobody tried that before? It's and I'm like, geez. And so
Yeah, like a bubble
I
screen,
think,
hook and ladder, like that was
yeah,
sweet.
I'm like, geez, why does nobody do that? And so
4th and 1,
going,
all huddle up, then sprint to the line and run a little hitch so defense can't get set and win the game. That's
yeah,
really good
it's
execution.
brilliant play call. And yeah, the execution was everything as well. Yeah, they had penalties and whatnot, but they didn't have the stupid penalties. They had like the Jameson Williams long touchdown got called back for a hold. Like,
Yeah,
they even looked better, I think than even the score kind of shows. So I'm with you that I actually do wish this team would have got the wild card instead of the Seahawks. I think they would have thrown some interesting things at the 49ers. And who knows? We've seen them put up 40 points. Maybe they just are all clicking. They go on a tear, and Brock Purdy can't match the 40 points. And all of a sudden, the Lions, they have a crazy run.
Oh, the
We're not going to
Lions have
see
a
it.
way better chance of beating the Niners than the Seahawks did. I
Yeah.
absolutely. Look, here, and I agree with what you had to say. And both Packers fans, there's probably extreme bias that we can't hear, but I'm just going to be straight up. The reality is, this Packers team didn't even deserve to get here. They found some
Yeah.
lightning in a bottle for like 4 or 5 weeks and absolutely like looked like a completely different team. And then they got to this game against the Lions at home and rewound the clock till week 5 when we played the Commanders or the Jets or whatever it was. And it was like, what the heck happened? Where's this team that came out and blew out the Minnesota Vikings? It was just a complete trap game debacle. And I don't understand how you can have a trap game when it's win or go home. How do you do that? But that's exactly what it was. Rodgers is overlooking the Lions in the press, whatever comment he said a couple weeks back. They've beaten us 3 times in a row, dude. Like, shut up.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
absolutely, the Packers, it's so clear. Not from the fan perspective, from the players' perspective, the Vikings game was their Super Bowl. And they didn't have the long-term perspective to look at it and say, oh, we need to win 2 to get in. And I think I texted you this. I want to say it was week 12 when we were 4-8. Maybe it was week 13 after we got to 5-8, where I said, yeah, everything's going to go right for the Packers and they're going to have a chance to get in. And all they have to do is beat the Lions in week 18 and they'll find a way to mess it up. And that's exactly how it played out. And that's just That's just sums up the 2022-23 Green Bay Packers to a T, really. So many games that they just had no business losing. We forget this team was 3-1 and was still on top of the NFC. They had beaten the Bucks, and we know the Bucks didn't turn out to be that good either. But at the time, we were like, oh, we came out with loss to the Vikings, and we turned it around like that, blew out the Bears in week 2. The Packers, look, and maybe I'll flip it to you first. What's your thoughts on the Packers' future? Because everybody's talking about it right now. But based on the way that the postseason went, the post game went, sorry. And then Jameson Williams asked him for the jersey. They Rodgers and Cobb walk off together. I mean, what are your thoughts?
Probably I'm gonna need more time for an actual response. Even the fact like I'm not gonna have a Packer game to watch next week still kind of setting in, and I don't like my really just knee-jerk like honest like answer right now is I have no idea how they even attack the future because they have so many question marks. Even Lazard's post-game interview, like none of the players even have it seems like an inkling of what Rodgers is gonna do. And then if he does come back, what do we do with Jordan Love? How much draft compensation or players? Who are we going to get for that? And then Bakhtiari is another one who has a major contract. Even when he's available, hasn't been too great. We have replacements behind him.
Yeah,
what do we do with that?
He definitely fell back this year.
Yeah, man. Like there is so many question marks, and the fact that we're currently salary cap strapped, I'm pretty sure we're already under. Or like over the
yeah, but if you lose Rodgers, that contract is set up to where
that will free us
up. That frees you up a little bit, and then especially if Bakhtiari goes too, then you can make some moves.
Absolutely, but now let's say we have them all. What do we do to make improvements to the roster? Like there's so much that like needs to be unfolded, so that's why it kind of sucks to give that like answer. I have no idea. I don't know, but I don't.
So I wanted to ask you first because I actually have pretty strong conviction about this. The championship window that was open the last few years, we missed it. It's shut. We have to find a way to open a new one. I think that if Rodgers wants to commit to playing till he's in his 40s and doesn't do this year-to-year thing where he casts out and his teammates don't even know if he's going to be there next year. He's going to skip spring OTAs and all this stuff. Like, there's a reason our offense looked horrible because he had never thrown the ball to Christian Watson and Romeo Doubs because he didn't show up in the spring, right? That's why it looked horrible until mid-year, until he started to get chemistry with these guys, right? And everybody talked about this. That's how Rodgers rolls, is chemistry. So if Rodgers wants to commit to doing that and being a leader on this team, you could reopen that window. You'd have to find a way to draft well defensively and maybe make a switch at defensive coordinator. I think he needs to get fired. I'm just going to be honest. And then Rodgers, the roster's not that far off. It is a couple pieces off, but it's there. If you win a couple more close games, we could be talking, we could be having a completely different conversation, right? But the reality is I don't think that's going to happen. Rodgers isn't going to do that. He's not going to commit to, I'm here until, I'm here for the foreseeable future, right? He's not going to say what Brady's saying. He's not going to say, oh, I want to play till I'm 50. I want to keep playing. I'm not even thinking about retirement, right? He's not going to come out and say one last ride. I don't think he's going to do that. I think that's just not his MO.
No. He likes having that leverage.
Yes,
That's
and
smart that
for
way.
that reason, I'm a little glad we didn't make the playoffs. I really am. That was one of my first thoughts after the game because everything I've said about Jordan Love was I felt pretty vindicated when it came to. Yeah, I got excited about us making a run last week. You can go check the tapes and expose me for this, but for the majority of the year, I think you would agree that I have been saying this team is bad, doesn't deserve to make the playoffs, and we need to move on in a lot of senses next year because this is a failure of a roster. And I was right. And while I did get excited, Rodgers turned it on. Don't get me wrong. But the reality is I'm going to go back to where I was about this time last year when we lost to the 49ers. I don't think we're going to win a championship again with Aaron Rodgers. Because not because we're incapable and he's incapable as a player, but because you can't structure a roster around a guy who's a 1 year rental every year. That's the
No,
bottom
that's very
line.
difficult.
And if you make
I'm
the move
just
to Love, look, you either have to, they can't both be on the roster again next year. But you can't spend a 5th year as a backup.
yeah.
You either going to have to trade him, and I think he's going to demand a trade as he should, get whatever you can, or you move on from Rodgers. And I'm glad we missed the playoffs because I think we should try Love. We made the pick. Let's make the transition. We've done this before, and it worked out very well. So
It did.
those are my thoughts. And we'll talk more about offseason when we get there. But I really do wish the Lions were in the playoffs. That's also my final thought. They deserve it not more than the Seahawks because the Seahawks actually made it by the rules.
Yeah,
So,
right.
but they would have been fun to watch. And that is the I'm a little upset about that because if you're going to lose, you want to lose to the team, that's the champion, or you know what I mean, right? So,
Yeah.
or it goes to the playoffs. So it sucks in that sense, but I rest my case. The Vikings still aren't gonna, they could beat the Giants. I haven't decided yet. I'm pretty content on a couple of the wild card matchups. That one I'm still going back and forth. So we'll talk. I'll have my decision by Thursday.
Let's
But
say all predictions in then.
yeah. All right. So that kind of wraps our Week 18 slate. A little bit of wild card preview in some of those senses, a little bit off-season preview as well. So a little different style podcast. But I do have some bad news for you. You had a 3-game lead headed into this week, and I went 11-5, and you went 8-8. So that Lions
So
pick,
closed, yeah.
really, really made the difference for me. I'm sticking to my guns. And you know what? I've did it all year. They're trash, man. The Packers, that is.
Yeah.
But you did get the win in Fantasy Frenzy. I'll go over that. But going into Week 19, Wild Card Weekend, we are both 160-11 in picking the NFL games this year, which is fairly decent compared to where we started, which was like under 500 for the first half of the year. So we definitely heated things up towards the end. But the fact that we're tied after an entire season, I think is freaking crazy.
That is pretty crazy, yeah.
We're going into the
We didn't miss
playoffs
a
because we
week.
have to
Yeah.
decide. We have to decide. So
Wow.
that's, and as a rundown of how I got 3 games on you this week, you had the Titans, I had the Jaguars. We both did miss on the Bucks. I had the
Jags,
Dolphins, you had
Dolphins,
the
and
Jets.
Lions.
Yep. And
Yeah.
then you did get Eagles. I took Giants. So the ones that I got that you didn't were Jaguars, Dolphins, Panthers, Lions, and you got the Eagles. So if the Giants won that game, that would have been a heck of a turnaround. But 11-5 and 8-8 on the week. And then for Fantasy Frenzy, this was by far both of our worst weeks. You barely scored 100 points. Part of that, and you still won. I only scored 83. Week 18 is hard, man. That's the bottom line.
Tough.
Everybody's available next week, but you even had a 0 from Mark Andrews and still got the win. But you only won by 17 points. So going into the playoffs for Fantasy Frenzy, everybody will be available every week. I'm at 1795, and you're at 1860. You're 9-5. I'm 5-9. So it is doable, a doable comeback, that's for sure. But I'd have to win every single week to split the wins for Fantasy Frenzy. So it's going to be interesting with everybody available. Who's going to go first? Who's going to go last? I have a feeling I've got the first pick. I got to think about it before Thursday, but I'm probably picking Travis Kelce. So
That's
We will
valid.
see.
Yeah.
But any closing thoughts? We will be back tomorrow, but for NBA Tuesday. But any closing thoughts on Week
Oh
18
yeah,
and the wrap of the NFL, regular season?
we'll have just some like it's like superlative stuff and whatnot that we'll try and tackle. But more or less, just it'll be nice to have playoff football. Every game will mean something. It's kind of a weird, kind of like in between week where turn on the TV and some of these games just were not worth watching.
Yeah, I mean, Red Zone is obviously the least entertaining this week for a number of reasons. But
Exactly.
some of the games don't matter at all, and then you also nobody's playing fantasy anymore. So like that's the big
Yeah.
benefit of Red Zone. And
Yeah, just is what it is, and obviously I'm not gonna have a very optimistic view because of Packer whole fiasco. But like I said, we got a lot of content coming up off season wise. Just hey, we love predictions, and now it's gonna be the ultimate
yeah,
game of predictions from here on out. So
we'll be giving out some awards on Thursday. How we feel that the awards should shake out, and then we'll be doing some other. Thursday should be a little bit of a longer podcast, so it'll be fun though, and I'm looking forward to Thursday's preview. But we will be back tomorrow with NBA Tuesday with Luke. So we'll be able to talk about the Suns being terrible, below 500. And I'm sure we'll all be very happy about that because the Suns are terrible. So with that being said, guys, be sure to check us out on Instagram, TikTok, and YouTube. We'll be pushing out more content for you guys. I've been on the move, so a couple of that stuff has been slacking a little bit, but I'm finally settling down in my new home. So we'll be all new content on all fronts. So we're looking forward to it. And yeah, till next time.
sounds good.
Peace.
Take care.